Probably my favorite question that I've ever been asked is when I was in the midst of complaining, which I can do pretty well, and I was just kind of talking about how many things had gone the way I didn't think they should have gone or were kind of taken away from me in the moment. And the man that was sitting at the table with me looked at me and he said, "We could sit here and talk about everything that you've lost. We can do that if you'd like to. But I'd love to pose another question to you. I'd love to ask you, what does this make possible?" Like, with that out of the way, what does this make possible? And something clicked with me, and literally to this day, that was years ago, and to this day, every time I lose something or something goes away that I didn't think it should go, my brain goes straight to, what does this make possible? Like, what could change? And so even with what we've been through in the last year and a half, and it has not been pretty, there's plenty to talk about that has not been good. And even to the point of my job stopped, like everything just stopped. And my first thought was, okay, well, what does this make possible? And I'm so grateful that that was the question that he asked me, and that was kind of how I looked at this. I can't tell you that I've looked at it like that every day. Let me be clear. But that question has been something that has completely changed my thinking, and I'm so grateful for his words that day.
So beautiful.
I'll tell you, I've been, I'm older than all of y'all, which I'm sure is apparent unless I've had really incredible makeup today. But I grew up in an era where there weren't that many women who were in leadership positions in the church or in ecclesiology. There's some amazing groundbreakers, and so I have a lot of those words spoken over me. And so I pretty much felt like, because I didn't marry a pastor and I can't cross stitch, I just needed to keep my head down and just not make too much of a ruckus. And it wasn't really until I was probably almost 40, I was working in ministry, have been in ministry, vocational ministry. We're all in ministry. If you've given your heart to Jesus, we're all ministers of the new covenant. But I always say those of us who do it vocationally are actually the weak ones, because we need financial incentives. So don't put us on a pedestal. But I've been in vocational ministry for the better part of my adult life. Love youth ministry, loved working for a parachurch. I was on a church staff for a while. But there was a season that my boss at a ministry had all of us in leadership go to counseling. And it was a counseling kind of like what you'd call Enneagram today, only it was a lot longer. And I remember as an almost 40-year-old woman having a very wise man say, God made you a teacher. So I didn't have somebody, Christy, when I was 16, tell me, what do you want to do? I had almost kind of slid around what God had called me to do, because my sweet mama, who was always an affirmer, but the proverb she quoted to me the most was, when words are many, sin is not absent. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm such a talker. Like, I'm probably in sin all day, every day. And so I've been telling stories since I was a kid, but I wasn't sure telling stories about Jesus honored Jesus. And even after going to seminary, even doing it vocationally, I kind of was working with my head down. And it probably wasn't until I was in my late 30s that I felt myself go, oh, this is the way he's made me. And I don't mean to sound hyper spiritual here, but the question that rocked my world was the one Jesus asked Peter, who do you say that I am? Yeah. And I had to start going, oh, you aren't just the King of all kings and the one who came to deliver me from my sins. You actually delight in me. You actually knit me this way. Yeah, I need to be careful. Proverbs says that if you can't guard your tongue, you won't preserve your life. But it also says, anxiety weighs a man down, but a good word gives him life. But to realize, wow, these words that fall out of my mouth can actually illuminate who he is. In the Gospels, we see the word kerygma in the Greek, which means the proclamation of who Jesus is, the proclamation of the gospel. I used to quote all the time St. Augustine. And then I found out he didn't really say this, but y'all have probably heard. Well, you know, I've heard it forever, and I took it so deep in my heart that preach the gospel as often as possible, and if you have to, use words. And I would feel so guilty. I was like, I've got to love people well. I heard Miss Joyce say, always put up your grocery cart. So I'd be out there in the rain, putting up other people's grocery carts. You know, just trying to really be active in my faith and not use my words. And then I found out, oh, he didn't even say that. Somebody made that up. Because there are times we do have to use words to say, let me tell you what Jesus did for me. Let me tell you about how he pulled me out of a pit. I dug myself and he carried me to a new place. And so I'm still learning to guard my tongue. But I'm also learning to use it in a way that it illuminates just what a good God he is, how kind he is.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe today and you'll never miss a new upload.
And don't forget to check out our Better Together shop. Thanks for being a part of our community.